Hello and welcome to the Secretariat. You're watching the Global Capsule. Sushma, let's start with Mr. Modi's 75th birthday. Of course, it's become quite an event.
Yes.
And he's been getting messages from most prominent leaders all across the world. But why this is of importance is Mr. Trump's message to Mr. Modi.
Absolutely.
And once again, he described him as a very good friend. India-US relationship is on a strong footing, and the fact that it needs to be taken to new heights, that is what he said. Mr. Modi responded saying, calling Trump his good friend, and the fact that India's partnership with US remains stable and it'll only grow stronger. Well, at the same time, the US-India trade talk is on. The US trade delegation is in India. What do you think is going to be the course, and how do you think things will pan out?
Well, it's definitely very interesting. And of course, President Trump has suddenly taken a different tack. It's a 360-degree turn for the United States, because just a few days ago, we are hearing all the tirade and harangues against India by his aides, whether it's Peter Navarro, whether it's Scott Bessent, their Treasury Secretary, or others also who are very close aides of President Trump. Apart from President Trump himself, I mean, they're all talking about the fact that India is purchasing oil from Russia. And Peter Navarro even said that, they're such a big country, they boast they have 1.4 billion people, but they're not buying a grain of our corn. He said there'll be serious consequences. Howard Lutnick said that India will be sorry and it will come to the negotiating table. So this is quite a turn of events. And obviously, President Trump has had a rethink, and we should really look at the reasons for this rethink. I think number one is something that we have discussed on this program before, is the SCO summit, where Prime Minister Modi made it a point to show his bonhomie with the Chinese, with Xi Jinping, and with the Russian President, Vladimir Putin. There was that wonderful photograph of the three of them standing together and smiling,
sharing
a joke. And that was the photograph that, obviously upset President Trump. So that is number one. It seems to have dawned on the US administration that India has other options. India is not simply going to say yes to everything we say, and we are not exactly a colonial nation of theirs. And if we are their strategic ally, which we are, we don't have to bow down to every whim and fancy of the United States. The other thing is that India has stood firm on the red lines that it had laid down at the negotiating table for the bilateral trade pact. It had said that we cannot allow access in the areas of agriculture, dairy, as well as in the area of genetically modified foods. Now, there was a feeling that obviously by the United States that if we put pressure on India and if we threaten them that we are going to put this 50% tariff, there was 25% initially and another 25%, which was punitive based on the fact that we buy oil from Russia, that if we impose 50% tariff, India will back down. And I've even heard analysts from China saying that India is going to have to back down on this issue. It will have to give in to the US demands because they don't have the leverage that China has. I mean, China does have leverage. It can stop export of rare earths, and it can also, stall the issue of semiconductors. So there are many things that China can do, which India cannot do.
But at the same time, we need to realize, we need to understand India is very strategic for US, and as US deals with China, India is going to play a very critical role.
Absolutely.
To balance the China prominence, India would always be, US would need India.
Absolutely. I mean, in the Indo-Pacific region, the strategic aims of the United States have been served by coming closer to India. I mean, after all, India has joined the Quad, that is United States, Australia, Japan, and India, and that is meant to be a deterrent to Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. And so, therefore, you're very right. India is very important in the entire overall global strategy of the United States, or so it has been for the last 25 years. Trump has overturned all this. So the fact that India has actually stood firm, it has stood firm on the terms that it is going to put at the negotiating table for the bilateral free trade pact, or the fact that it is showing that we do have options. We have a long-standing friendship with Russia. We are mending our ties with China, and you can go ahead and impose 50% tariffs. We look for other markets. So India has taken a very strong line, and I think that is the reason that President Trump is now recognizing that they need to get back to tying up a free trade pact with India. And one of the reasons for it, I mean, I'm sure, Mahua, you must also have read the reports coming from the United States, is that American farmers, who are a large part of the support base of the United States president, of Donald Trump, are getting very agitated because their soybean and corn stocks are piling up.
At the same time, US inflation numbers have also gone up.
Absolutely. Inflation numbers have gone up. These inventories are piling up because of the high tariffs imposed on China. China has shifted its purchases of soybean to Brazil. And they, of course, as I said, US is trying to export to India. India is right now a net importer of corn because we require it for ethanol purposes. But there is a reluctance to buy from the US because, this is all genetically modified food. So there are a host of reasons that Donald Trump and the US administration has now recognized that these kind of pressure tactics, these kind of threats are not going to work. I mean, we all have seen suddenly an envoy from the US negotiating team has flown down just to spend one day here and talk to the Indians and bring them back to the negotiating table. Though, of course, the American side is portraying it as, well, India has now come back to the negotiating table. But we are not, as far as we know, we are not backing down on any of the red lines that have been laid down, that were laid down earlier.
And also what you said, Sushma, just to add to that, I mean, because of the immigration policy, Trump's immigration policy, there's a lot of labor force which has moved out of the US. Now, there is also shortage of labor.
Yes.
And that is also adding to the agriculture problem of the US.
Yes, because they have all these immigrants, and some have been legal, a lot of them have been illegal, and these were the farm hands which were being used by American farmers on their very huge farms. Where their farms are as big as 500 acres. An average farm is about 500 acres. And this workforce is no longer available to us or to them, or rather it has been reduced drastically. So there are a lot of problems they are facing. Incidentally, India has, of course, agreed to reduce tariffs in a few areas, which are nuts and fruits. But unfortunately, those are being produced in California, where the support base, I mean, Trump does not have a support base. It's all completely democratic. So Trump is facing a host of problems right now.
Moving away from Trump, coming to the EU, a EU delegation is in India. And of course, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri also had a meeting with a few members of the delegation. India-EU trade talks are underway, and it is expected that the trade pact might be signed before this year, within the next few months. How do you see the India-EU relation panning at this point, considering that EU is also putting pressure on India and has raised concerns for buying Russian oil?
Well, I think first of all, we must recognize that the importance of the India-Europe relationship has not been recognized as much as it should be. Actually, the bilateral trade between India and the EU is larger than the bilateral trade between India and the US or India and China. It's about $137 billion as compared to about $131 billion with either the US and China. So it's a much larger amount in terms of value. And secondly, we must recognize also that although what you're saying is correct, they are talking about the fact that India is buying oil from Russia, they are also desperately looking for another market. Though the European Union has entered into a trade pact with the US, and apparently, I mean, I think the average tariff is probably 15%, they have been forced to make commitments of very large scale investments. So the EU is certainly not happy about what has happened. You have to accept that the US is certainly the largest market in the world right now, but they are looking for other markets, and they see the fast growing middle class of India as a huge area of consumption where they can redirect their products. India, on its part, is also looking to Europe because, with 50% tariffs, which have still not been removed, the punitive 25% is still there. It is also looking for alternative markets. Of course, it is looking largely at other places like Africa and even Southeast Asia, but it's also looking at Europe.
South American countries.
South American. But so if the EU reduces its tariff barriers, brings down also its non-tariff barriers, it would be actually a win-win for both sides. I mean, this is how Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal described it, and it really is, because this is what both sides are looking at. And we must remember, Maua, that the EU has been, this entire year, has been making a big thrust towards engaging with India. A few months ago, you had the entire European Commission over here, the entire team of European commissioners came. Now, then earlier you had the two European commissioners just now to negotiate the trade talks, which are completely on fast track on both sides. And now the latest, of course, is that the Political and Strategic Committee of the European Union has come here to enter into a dialogue on strategic issues. And this is at this point that the European Union ambassador has made this statement, as you pointed out, that we could have much deeper engagement if India was not buying Russian oil. But I think here, this is a case of double standards. The European Union bilateral trade with Russia is currently about $78 billion. It's not small.
And they've been buying Russian oil from India in any case.
Yes, they've been buying Russian
Absolutely.
oil. Yes,
Absolutely.
and they're buying still Russian gas. They used to rely on Russian gas about 40% of their needs. Now it's still down to 19%, but they're still buying it. So I think we have to take this with a pinch of salt.
And also the fact that India needs to diversify its exports market. I mean, no point in just looking at US or particularly. We need to diversify the markets, and this is a wake-up call. The 50% tariff probably is a wake-up call for India to understand and to identify that, you need to really take up this issue of diversification of export market. Moving closer home, let's talk about Nepal. Finally, there is an interim government under Sushila Karki. Mr. Modi has called up Sushila Karki, congratulated her and promised her all kinds of help, all kind of support, commitment, and whatever it requires to rebuild or in the recovery process of Nepal. How do you think the India-Nepal scenario will sort of pan out?
Well, I think the plus point is that this lady, Sushila Karki, has said that she's a friend of India, So we have had to face situations in the past where the people at the helm of affairs in Nepal have been very blatantly either anti-India or pro-China.
In fact, she studied in Banaras Hindu University.
Yes, exactly. So, it's, but I think, even if we have had to contend with people who are, either anti-India or pro-China, the bulk of Nepalese people have a very close connect with India, you know. And, they don't even consider people working in India as a diaspora when you do the
as
estimates.
foreigners.
They don't consider that they're working in a foreign country.
And it's the same with India. I mean, we don't consider who's a Nepalese or who. I mean,
yes. We consider them as part of our own
country.
Part of our own country. So I hope that with her coming, we'll be able to resolve many issues. One, of course, is the fact that, you know, electricity supply, that we are building some power plants over there and trying to enable them to export power, and also try to get more. India should be able to provide more help in infrastructure for Nepal. India, despite the fact that Nepal has been taking a lot of assistance in terms of infrastructure from China, cannot afford to not be engaged with Nepal, because it is a border country. We are very close. The borders are open. People come and go virtually at will. So we need to, I think, capitalize on the fact that the leadership is pro-India and try to provide as much support as possible without having a big brother attitude.
Absolutely. And reset ties.
Exactly. Especially economic ties, which had, in the past, we had problems. We had imposed a blockade, which was rather unfair. And therefore, I think this is a good time to reset ties.
That is all we have for this week. Thank you for watching and see you soon. See you next week.